We said last week we were not ready for this ride to end. The next stop on that ride is New York for the ALCS. Are you ready for Cleveland versus the world?
Tanner Bobby of the Guardians, and you're listening to Locked On Guardians.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 of bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started today.
On our bonus second episode on Monday before the ALCS starts against the Yankees, we'll talk about this matchup against the Yankees. This is going to be Cleveland versus the world. We'll get into all that stuff, and we'll get into roster decisions before the start of Game 1 and Game 1 matchups, the ALCS matchups, all the good stuff here, getting you ready for this series on Locked On Guardians.
Yeah, I will say, it is Cleveland versus the world. It also does feel like it is the world hoping Cleveland beats New York, as long as you're not a New York, a lower New York fan. Most of upper New York, I think, is rooting for Cleveland, and as well as you are not an executive for Major League Baseball.
That's fair. So you've got, if you take the population of New York and you take everybody that works in Major League Baseball, it's a lot of forces against, it's about even, right? A lot of people living in New York, a lot of people working for Major League Baseball who are hoping the Guardians fall. That's about equal to Cleveland and the rest of the world, right?
Not quite. But yeah, it is definitely Cleveland has I think one thing we can agree on is the deck is stacked. The deck is stacked against them, if only because of, baseball is this weird sport, unlike other sports where we don't pull all the TV money together and kind of share it out to some degree. It is, when you have a big market, when you are the Yankees, you have a massive advantage. And, we can talk about how the Mets money is distributed. It's a little bit weird this year because of how much they're paying for players not playing for them. But yeah, Cleveland is just, gosh, I mean, the big three guys probably make nearly as much payroll as the entire Cleveland team.
Payroll doesn't matter this time of year. Maybe it does. I don't know. I mean, the three of the four teams in the Final Four here are.
It gives you more leeway. Like when things go wrong, you have better abilities to recover from it. You have more depth.
Yeah, because the Mets are paying Scherzer and Verlander to play somewhere else so they can get a better prospect return, and those prospects aren't even impacting the Major League team this year in the playoffs. The Mets are a weird story too, but you know what? Nobody thought the Guardians would be here.
Nope.
And here they are. It feels like every time the Guardians for Cleveland goes up against the Yankees, it's always Cleveland versus the world, or it's the world and Cleveland versus the state of New York or the city of New York. I don't know. There's just been so many matchups in this history, and I'm just thinking about this. The players don't care about this because they're here for the here and now. They're trying to win 4 games in the next week. But as far as Cleveland fans go, and Sandy Alomar is a big part of this too. I just think back specifically for Sandy Alomar and Brad Goldberg too. Brad Goldberg growing up a Cleveland fan.
Mm-hmm.
Those two guys specifically have a lot riding here. They have a lot of invested in this, not just for this team, but for the city and for what they've done through here. And so many past matchups against the Yankees in the playoffs. And I don't know, just be prepared for it. Just be prepared for, again, I know Jeff said it might be, and I know there's Detroit fans. We got one regular Detroit listener who was hoping Cleveland beats the Yankees, but it's going to feel when you're watching the broadcast, everyone's going to have this feeling that they're going to be rooting for New York. Like Bob Costas, I don't want to get into really ripping anybody here, but every time I watched Yankees Royals, I was it just feels like Bob Costas was willing them to do something. And I think he's past his prime as a broadcaster. That's going to get me in trouble probably, but
he peaked in basketball. Let's be honest.
Oh, basketball. Yeah. The 3-man sack race on Sundays to determine a playoff spot.
I mean, it's natural. I mean, Bob Costas was born in New York City and went to Syracuse. He's been great at his peak, but he probably is a Yankees fan.
Just get ready for all the narratives. Ready for all the narratives about I've already seen the stories coming into the postseason. It was from the New York Post from Joel Sherman, who said, if the Yankees don't make the World Series this year, then they only have themselves to blame. There's nobody standing in their way. basically saying like the Royals, the Orioles, the Guardians, the Tigers, the Astros, like there's no team that should stand in front of them if they don't go to the World Series, they don't win the World Series, it's on them and nobody else. So basically, like Bill Sherman's already saying, it's either the Yankees beat themselves or they win the World Series.
Is like
it's the Yankees versus the Yankees.
The Guardians should like have that on their bulletin board. Like that should be something that offends them. That like they're that that discounted. That they are people are kind of already looking past them. That was it the Athletic listed the best World Series matchups, and the bottom two were Cleveland.
Yeah, ESPN did the same thing. The 4-letter network had the last possible matchup that everyone liked was Cleveland versus the Mets, and the third best matchup was Cleveland versus the Dodgers, which they did say there was some history there. The last Cleveland won a World Series in 1920 against the Brooklyn Robins, so I guess there's that. That became Los
Good
Angeles.
Old Stan Kovaleski and his spitball.
Yeah, he won three games in that 9-game series.
Yep, it was
I don't know if I can handle 9 games against the Yankees or Dodgers. 5 against the Tigers was a lot. Handling 7 versus the Yankees, I don't know if I could do 9 against the.
It was definitely a different sport back then in a lot of ways.
Gee, I wonder. Nope, not gonna go there. Nope, not gonna go there.
You just mean how there was no one who didn't look like you and me in those games, being one of those things that stands out.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm already prepared for that. It's fine. It's it's whatever. It's gonna be a fun series, and I know. Welcome any Yankees fans who are finding our show or commenting on YouTube or in our mentions. We had fun with the Tigers fans listening in the first round, and we'll see how that goes again here. The first round was the DS was very, very agonizing. Like I said in the first show, like it felt good when the Guardians scored 5 runs in the first inning, right, without making it out, and everyone was flying high on the rainbow and riding a unicorn. And every game is going to be fun. It's going to be 10 times the max in this series, as everybody knows. So just be prepared for a bumpy ride. And I don't want to say like Cleveland should be happy to be here for sure, but getting past that first round I think meant a lot for a lot of guys in this team. I think for the city, like you wanted to win that first round, and I can't imagine. I think there was one guy at ESPN, it was Dave Schoenfield, who picked him to win the World Series at the start of the postseason, and he picked them to beat the Yankees obviously because he's sticking with his pick. And we'll talk about whether or not how the Guardians can do it in this round. But they beat Tarek Skubal in Game 5 to get here, right?
Garrett Cole is not as tough as Tarek Skubal, though. They are better. Not this year, but it gets close to even because they're so much better against left-handed pitching than right-hand pitching. They're a different team.
Yeah, there is that. And we'll talk about the ways the Yankees are different, obviously, but anything can happen. Like I said, like if you went back and listened to our first show today, recapping the LDS, like every time you doubt this team, every time I know people accuse us all here of being negative about different things. Anytime, like I had friends who were like, they're not going to win the division. This is the defining loss of the year. They're not going to win the division. And this team can't do this. This team can't do that. And there were points where you and I were wondering about things like, how are they going to hit first round against the Tigers even? Are they going to score enough runs to win? We kept saying score 4 and win. And that proved to be true in every game, right? When they scored 4 runs or more, they won every game that round. It's going to be the same this round too. But like, again, the David Fry home run off of Bo Brisky, Lane Thomas's grand slam, Lane Thomas's home run off Reese Olson. We can sit here and try to, I said this before too, we can sit here and try to predict all the things we want to predict and go through matchups, and this guy is not good against this pitch, and this guy hits this kind of pitcher very well. And we can break all that down and try to prepare ourselves for what we're going to see, try to prepare
because we know the team is
for what to expect. But a lot of this at the end of the day, the team is doing all this preparation too. But at the end of the day, you want to be as prepared as you can and locked in as you can for this matchup as far as the team goes. But at the end of the day, you can throw a lot of that out because, again, David Fry versus Bo Brisky, probably not a great matchup. They won that one. Lane Thomas grand slam, that's a great matchup. But, those are situations you don't expect to exceed in. Or Brian Rocchio, we didn't expect him to have a great ALDS.
It's process versus results. Sometimes, you get lucky.
Yes. We've said it all in the last 2 games of the LDS. It's better to be lucky than good in the postseason. And sometimes,
postseason has a lot of luck in it.
A lot of luck, and sometimes results matter more than process, and that's what happens. Sometimes your process is good and it fails. Sometimes your process is bad and it goes your way. And in a 7 or 5 game series, that makes the difference. So we can, again, the Guardians are going to prepare for this like they can win. You might be worried about whether or not they can do this. There might be doubters, but at the same time, there's been doubts about different things about this team throughout the season. I think we can throw a lot of this stuff out and just say, like, they can do it. I'm not saying it's going to be easy or the odds aren't going to be with them, but, like, they're here for a reason. They have persevered this season for a reason with what they've all been through. They can absolutely. Yankees fans I saw on Reddit don't think they can do it. They think this is going to be the easiest series they've had all season. I think Cleveland can do it. I'm not saying the odds are great, but they can do it. They're here for a reason. I think anything can happen, and I think they can at least give themselves a shot to go to the World Series, despite what all the things we think that shouldn't go right for them this series. I think they can do it.
You just gotta. Listen, the Garrett Cole game's probably gonna be tough, right? Just like we said, the Tarek Skubal game is gonna be tough, and Clark Schmidt is. We'll get into all that stuff, but like they have enough other things. Like you just have to do what you did last time. Like if they're going to advance, I feel like it's going to take 7 games, and you're going to grind it out, and it is going to be all of us having ulcers and heartburn, and it's going to just do terrible things to our bodies. But that's what it's going to take to advance. We all got to sacrifice.
I can't get much worse for mine, so I have no downside here other than pain and agony and not sleeping. I don't sleep as it is, so I can't get any worse for my body and my mind. But bring it on. Let's have some agony and some misery together, and let's see if we can't enjoy something at the end of next week. All right, we're gonna get into some stuff about the series matchups that we can throw out the window at the end of this. Some other quotes we've seen on the first day of media availability before the LCS rosters, matchups, all that fun stuff on the way on our second Monday episode of Locked On Guardians.
But first, a fantastic sponsor is Ibotta. Ibotta is a free app to let you earn cashback every time you shop. Earn on hundreds of items from groceries to beauty supplies, even toys. Holidays right around the corner. So make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. The average Ibotta user earns $256 a year. Think of all the things you could spend that on. That could be your Christmas money every year. Other apps give you points that don't amount to much. With Ibotta, you earn cash that you can withdraw to your bank account, PayPal, or gift card. Simply add offers and app, upload your receipt, and voila, the money is yours. You can save on 2,400 brands and shop at 1,000 retailers, including your favorite grocery stores, Lowe's, May, Sephora, Best Buy, and more. It's time to join the 50 million users who use Ibotta every day. Every time they shop. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 free just for trying. And that's how confident they are in their product. Just use the code LOCKEDONMLB when you register. Go to the App Store or Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app to start earning cash back and use the code LOCKEDONMLB. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store and use the code LOCKEDONMLB.
Locked On MLB is going to have you covered all throughout the postseason for all the matchups. National perspective on this series. Going to talk about Dodgers and Mets as well over there. And the news that comes up this offseason. I'm sure our pal Sully's already had an episode about Tito to the Reds. If you haven't heard that, check out our pal Sully over at Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. We got one for you every day on any team. I had to laugh. First, before we get into matchups and rosters and all that kind of stuff, I had to laugh. That quote about Aaron Boone going around on Sunday.
That was much ado about nothing, honestly.
Yeah, it got really. I saw the quote before I listened to it, and I was like, "Oh man, he's really putting some bulletin board material up for Jose and the Guardians." But then I went back and listened to the actual audio, and he was saying, like, in the baseball world, among teams, Jose Ramirez is definitely not underrated. Like, he's not. Everybody knows who Jose Ramirez is. They spent a lot of time talking about him. AJ Hinch talked about him like 10 times during the first round, and Aaron Boone's already talking about him now. And he said, like, he's gonna rip his arms off and throw it, which again,
I want to say, how do you do that? How do you chuck your arms? I believe that was what he said. If you've thrown your arms off, how do you then chuck your arms? Like, he just didn't make any darn sense. Like, it's not possible. If you rip off both your arms, you can't then turn around and throw your arms. This is I worry about his. I mean, this is advantage Cleveland. He's got a bad approach.
Yeah,
no forward thought.
Yeah, he's a philosophical guy, isn't he? He's really working hard. I think his brain was broken just thinking about planning for Jose Ramirez. Maybe that's what it was. But he was really saying, like, look, nobody in baseball thinks Jose Ramirez is underrated, because anytime you play Jose Ramirez in a series in the Guardians, you are game planning for how you're not going to let that guy beat you. So in the baseball world, in terms of the teams, Jose Ramirez is not underrated, not by a long shot, not in Cleveland. But I think, I don't know, I want to say like even national media, maybe he's underrated. But then again, he's finished how many times top 3 in the MVP over the last like 7 years. So like, even though he hasn't won one, I feel like he's maybe not underrated because he's gotten enough votes to be in the top 10 of the MVP like most years of his career. So, like the national media who votes on MVP awards, they're voting for him, at least for the MVP votes down ballot. So it's not like they don't know who he is. So maybe he's not underrated. But you want to know what? He got a home run and an RBI, a 2-run double in the first game of that series. I think this is a series. I said it in game 3, I said it in game 4, and I said it in game 5. I didn't say in game 5 because I said in game 5, just get lucky. Doesn't matter what you do. Just get lucky and win. I'm going to say it again, and just stars have to be stars in the postseason. Aaron Judge wasn't a star in the first round for the Yankees. Shohei Ohtani has been at times. Jose Ramirez was not really a star on the field in the ALDS. If he is ever going to finally stop people from talking about him being underrated, which he really isn't, but if we're going to finally shed this narrative, I think Jose has to come out. If they're going to win the series, has to come out and have a big series. But I think this would be such a fun time for Cleveland if Jose Ramirez walked onto the stage and just absolutely went nuts at Yankee Stadium. Not going to be easy, and he's had chances before. The 2017 ALDS, he had a chance, and him and Lindor, minus Lindor's grand slam in game 2, they both kind of fell on their face in that ALDS. This is a great chance for Jose to finally knock that narrative out and for the whole world to really see what a great player he is. That'd be so much fun for Cleveland, be fun for us, and it would be fun. It would help the Guardians win. Like this is the time to do it. Shed the narrative that he's underrated, and Aaron Boone will be like, you know what, we lost, but I can reattach my arms now because I don't have to hear you talk about how underrated he is. So I saved my arms.
So just the other side of it, if you're curious, so Jose Ramirez is now up to I think I saw he's up to a 656 OPS in 154 plate appearances. His worst round is the ALCS. That was the one he's had the biggest struggles in. That was only in 2016 did he get there. So it is the smallest of sample sizes. This is a chance for him to, as you said, continue turning that narrative around. His final numbers, in spite of the home run, he ended up with a 188 batting, 350 on base because they walked him, intentionally, as 438 slug. So he ended up with a 788 OPS. All in all, but you need more. You need your stars to be stars. For the Yankees, you can have Aaron Judge not be a star when you have, maybe the number 2 and number 3 best hitters on the planet. We can debate another day. That's not for this podcast. Like, is Ohtani one? Is it Judge? That's another day. But the top 3, very clearly to me, are Ohtani, Judge, and Soto. So they've got 2 of the top 3. Then you got Stanton, who stepped up and had a huge, series for them. And then, Chisholm, Jazz, I'm just going to say, because I'm going to keep getting his name wrong. Jazz was a solid addition for them. Like, probably, outside of Lane Thomas, like the guy who could have had the biggest impact for a lot of teams. There are some weaknesses in his game, and we can talk about that potentially with time today. But this is the Yankees lineup, and Austin Wells has been utterly fantastic as long as he's facing a righty. So this Yankees lineup does have its stars, but it's not quite as deep as we're used to. This is not the most, even go back to 2022, this lineup is not as balanced. The DJ LeMahieu's are not there. The Anthony Rizzo being Anthony, at least close to what he was at peak is not there. Like, this is a team that might probably had the worst first baseman in the entire postseason. Like again, I'll think about that statement. The Yankees had the worst first base position in the postseason. That's not supposed to happen because this is the team that, again, if Cleveland makes a mistake in free agency, it hampers them and they're stuck and they only have such limited funds. They also can't go out and take a gamble and buy guys who won't be productive. But for the Yankees, they can take those gambles. They can take those risks. And they still didn't have the depth and the pieces to allow them to start anyone other than Bowling Green's own John Birdie, right, for 3 out of the 5 games at first base, who can't hit lefties to save his life and is most well known for 2-3 years ago. I want to say he led the NL in saves in stolen bases when he was with the Marlins before the rule changes. He's close to league average for his career, but there's a reason why he's not been a regular starter. It's a really interesting Yankees team. It's not quite the Yankees we're used to of old in some respects. It's not to say they aren't very good. Don't get me wrong. I don't want Yankees fans to, I think it's a lot of the same complaints Yankees fans have had, where the team has not gone out and spent the way it used to. It has not gone out and bought the free agent market like it has in the past. And it's led to this team being mortal at multiple points during this season. I do want to say, I made a very foolish comment on the live stream. I would have rather faced the Royals than the Yankees, just because as tough as Cole Ragans is and as good as Seth Lugo has been, that wasn't enough. Their bullpens, I think, are on par with each other. New York's is probably a little bit better when I really sat down to study it. And New York, with those 2 bats, like that was a foolish statement. So I'm going to walk that one back from last Friday. But this is a good Yankees team. It is not the Yankees of even 2022 or 2007, I think, when we knocked them out in the first round, or all those years they've had all those battles.
They've certainly not had a hitter like Aaron Judge in a long time, and they've got Juan Soto, and it's not. I mean, it's not a 2-man show, but it kind of is. Like, those are the 2 guys you don't want to beat you. Obviously, there is, like you said, Jazz Chisholm. Stanton had a good ALDS, and he ended up getting a big hit in 2022 against his team in Game 5. But this is largely the same Yankees team that Cleveland took to Game 5.
Wells is really good, but only against righties.
Yeah, this is largely the same Yankees team that the Guardians took to 5 games and ALDS in 2022, and that was with Cal Quantrill starting 2 games. Zach Plesac was still on the roster, and Aaron Savali started Game 5 after not starting in over a week. And you might run into something like that with Gavin Williams, but this is the ALCS. And yes, the Guardians cannot do what they did with their bullpen in the first round. They'll have to be a little more strategic about it, which means you're going to have to see guys like Eli Morgan and Andrew Walters and maybe Joey Cantillo. And I don't know what else they'll do. They don't really have any other relievers besides Sandlin and Avila to add to the roster. There's Ben Lively too, which we can talk about.
Yeah.
But they're going to have to get more out of the starting pitching, and that's what's going to come. That's going to be a big deal in the series. Against the Tigers, we kept saying score 4 and win. I don't know if score 4 and win is going to apply as much against the Yankees, at least not in New York. Like, scoring 4 runs in the Yankee Stadium is not the same as scoring 4 runs anywhere else because of that little league porch in right field and how well they take advantage of it. But the Guardians at the same time need to take advantage of it too. And out-homering your opponent wins in the postseason. Like Game 4, they homered twice. Jose and David Fry hit home runs in Game 4, won that game. Cleveland hit the only home run in Game 1 and Game 5. They won that game. It's going to be really hard to out-homer the Yankees. So you're going to have to find it. It's going to have to be Guards ball. You're going to have to see different versions of Guards ball. Chaos, don't strike out. Find a way to work some walks. Get 4 innings out of your starters, maybe into the 5th inning. All that kind of stuff. But again, like I said, we can break down all the stuff we want to break down, and a lot of it you're going to have to throw out the window, because if the Guardians are going to win, it's going to have to be illogical, like it was with some of the stuff against the Tigers. It's not going to be easy. We'll break down more of the matchups we're looking at. We'll talk about Game 1. We'll talk about any roster changes we think are coming. The Yankees roster, I feel like, is already mostly set. We'll talk about theirs, talk about the Guardians, all in the rest of today's episode. NFL fans, get started this season and keep it going with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. When you have a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. I talked about on the other episode how I absolutely laid an egg on Saturday with all the stuff I did on FanDuel, between taking the under on Guardians-Tigers, taking the over on Ohio State-Oregon, taking Ohio State with the points. Did not do well there. Let's take a look at what we have in store for us in Game 1. That's going to be Carlos Rodon versus Alex Cobb. In that one, Guardians, the Yankees are favored by 1.5. So that's an interesting one too. Over under is 7.5. If it's the over, Tigers are probably winning. If it's the under, the Guardians got a chance. I don't know about 8 runs there. I'm not going to give you any advice because I did terrible on Saturday. I don't know what I'm going to do in this one. But some advice I can give you that's a good one. Get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. So just go to FanDuel.com or open the app, place a $5 bet, and get for the first time and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed in your account. That's FanDuel.com. Postseason action for MLB all over your SiriusXM app. Just search for the game you're looking for. Guardians broadcast, of course, is what you're going to want if you're listening to us. Or maybe you're a Yankees fan checking out Locked On Guardians to check out our perspective. Hi and welcome. You can also listen to the calls of the Yankees games on SiriusXM. Search Guardians or Yankees to find all that good stuff all postseason long. So we know game 1 is Carlos Rodon and Alex Cobb. The Yankees have already set the rotation for the ALCS. It's going to be Rodon, Cole, Clark Schmidt, and then it's going to be Luis Heel in game 4, and then they're going to just repeat. It's going to be Rodon. If it goes 5, Cole 6, and Schmidt 7. For Cleveland, we know it's Cobb, then Bybee 1 and 2. I would assume game 3 is going to be Boyd. Game 4, I'm guessing Gavin Williams. Like he hasn't, he just hasn't pitched in so long. I don't know what you do there.
I could also see so. Diving into this lineup, a few things came to my top of my head. I'm just going to kind of speak all around the place on this and then give Justin his time to speak all around on things. But one, the Yankees, the interesting thing is the top team in baseball versus right-handed pitching and the top team against left-handed pitching was the same team by OPS. And it was the Arizona Diamondbacks who didn't even make the postseason. So that kind of goes to show that, it's not always the end-all be-all to look at team stats. The Yankees were second versus left-handed pitching. So I'm going to make a weird statement. I actually would much rather have left-handers to face this team. And the reason for that is because Austin Wells did such great work for them, and he doesn't play well against lefties. Jazz is closer to average, where he's, like a 17 WRC plus shift. Whoever is playing first base, if it's Perez or Birdie, are both not good against lefties. You're not gonna. In the past, Stanton's killed them. This year, he had reverse splits, which is the first time I've seen that. Trying to think, Stanton and Judge, it doesn't really matter. They're so good, but I'm blanking on Volpe is about even. And during the season, Volpe was their version of Rocchio. Like, great defensive metrics, not great offensive production. He was fantastic in the first round. So when I look at that team, I think you want to be intelligent and smart. You want to hit them at the right times, set things up. It's Torres who hits lefties and does not hit righties. That's who I was blanking on for a second there. But I think you do want the lefties because of Wells, because of, the bottom of their lineup is going to be a very, anti when you want to have left-handed pitching, if you're, turning things over. The other side of it is, I know Rodon has had his way with Cleveland in the past. This is a different team. This is a team that is they are better against lefties and righties. They've completely changed this lineup. What have we talked about? Pitch wise, they struggle against cutters and sinkers. And, that's what Clark Schmidt throws all the stuff they struggle against. So I agree with the average Yankees fan who's out there being like Schmidt should go game 1 and Rodon game 3. Rodon sets up much nicer for Cleveland. I don't care about, what he's done historically against Cleveland because this is a different team, a different lineup. This team does so much better against lefties. And I was very happy to see that announcement. I'm with the average Yankee fan. I think Boone already kind of, now watch him go out and have a fantastic game and me look like a moron, but I agree with the average Yankee fan. I think that they should have absolutely gone with Schmidt, even though his FIP kind of shows some room for regression. His stuff is what Cleveland struggles with.
It is a lot. Yeah, I saw a lot of Yankees fans who are not super thrilled with the idea of Rodon in game 1. And that was the only game they lost to the Royals in the first round was with Rodon on the mound. Or Rodon, I should say. Sorry.
Rodon, yeah.
People are going to get mad at us about our pronunciations, and I screwed that one up. Whatever. This is not the same team that's faced Rodon in the past. Obviously, like you said, they're better against lefties. His pitch mix has been consistent. It's 50% fastballs, and it was the same against the Royals, 26% sliders, and a couple.
It's a 4-seam, which we know they're good against.
Yeah. the fastball for Rodon this year has been hit hard. So
Yeah.
Rodon should be throwing a lot of changeups to Cleveland. Truthfully, that's what he really wants to probably focus on is throw a lot of changeups, which Cleveland has a lot of guys struggle with. That really shut Jose down in the first round. A lot of changeups from Tarek Skubal. Jose has had good numbers against the changeup this year, but not held up by Xwoba, even though that's not predictive. Be interesting to see what happens with Lane Thomas because Lane Thomas crushes changeups. So does Jimenez. I don't know about lefty changeups, and Rodon doesn't really throw a lot of lefty changeups, so we'll see about that. But I would think he's going to have a changeup heavy approach, but he's going to also pitch to the top of the zone with the four seam. It'll be fun to see. David Fry in there, which is good. Fry loves a high fastball, so that'll be interesting to see as well. Rodon is a good matchup for them in the first game, and the first game would be really important for Cleveland to steal, honestly, because if you can win that first game, then you got Tanner going out the next night, and it should be a fairly good match against Garrett Cole in terms of pitching. And the first 2 days, you can go out and you can leverage your bullpen a little bit more because you have the off day in game 3 or the off day on third day on Wednesday. So you can leverage your bullpen in games 1 and 2, but then you play 3, 4, 5 in a row. If you get to 5, you got to be a little bit more careful, obviously. So, but these first 2 days, you got Cobb in game 1. The bullpen can go heavy in game 1 if you need him to. And then game 2, you got Bybee, who might be able to save the bullpen a little, hopefully. And then if you need to go to them, you have them because the day off on Wednesday, so they can do that. And hey, Tanner's second game of his career was in Yankee Stadium, I think, against Garrett Cole. So I think he's got a lot of nerves out of his system from the first game as well. He's got more experience. That's big for all these guys. So we'll see about that. I think the other thing with Alex Cobb too in this first game, Alex Cobb's pitched in Yankee Stadium plenty of times in his career, playing with Tampa Bay and playing with the Baltimore for a couple of years too. I'm not saying that means he's gonna do great, but he's at least been in that stadium before. He knows how the crowd can be. Maybe not the playoffs, so maybe that doesn't necessarily matter. But he's been in that stadium. He hasn't pitched there since 2023. He beat them. Well, he gave up 2 runs in 3 2/3 innings. Whatever. They don't have a lot of experience against Cobb. Like Giancarlo Stanton's got 17 plate appearances. Aaron Judge has 12. Juan Soto's got 12. None of that stuff's like, anything you could take from in terms of experience. And just like Cleveland, the only guy that's got a lot of experience against Rodon is Jose because he's been here in the Central forever. After that, it's Naylor, and then after that, it's Thomas. Lane Thomas, who's played in the NL his entire career, has more at bats against Rodon than Stephen Kwan and Austin Hedges. So, and after that, nobody else has faced him. So it's a very new team against Rodon. Cobb's got the experience there. Pitch mix, I don't really love Cobb against the Yankees. We'll see how it is.
Yeah, nor do I.
But for Cleveland in this series in general,
should be a short leash for him.
It should be a short leash for him in game 1 because you got Tanner in game 2 and you got the off day on Wednesday. But you're still going to want Cade Smith, Gaddis. I don't know. Tim Herron's going to be an interesting case because he struggled in the first round. His velocity was down. He was a little bit better in his last outing, but not great. You're gonna have to be more. You're gonna have to rely on Andrew Walters and Eli Morgan.
You're gonna have to trust the other guys.
You're gonna have to trust your starters to get you into the 5th inning a lot of nights too. Especially those 3 home games. Hopefully, if you win one of those games, you get to game 5. You're gonna have to. You got 3 days in a row there, so you're gonna have to trust some of those guys. Yankees don't have a lot of lefties, so like Lane Thomas and David Fry. Thomas will be in the lineup no matter what. You get more Kyle Manzardo this round. Hopefully that's a good thing for them. They
got 2 lefties in the pen who one of them is almost a loogie, honestly.
Tim Meza has not been good for them. Tim Hill's been good, but Tim Meza has not been great.
He's got some fluky data. So yeah, he is essentially a loogie. So I'll be kind of curious to see how they deploy or use him.
For the Yankees, I can expect, let's say this in the Yankees, you're going to see them have all their starters hopefully go into the 6th inning. That's what they're going to want from all their starters. And then I think they would prefer to use Clay Holmes, Tommy Kahnle, and Luke Weaver. Luke Weaver is going to be a dangerous weapon for them because he has been absolutely nasty this year. And he's a guy who's thrown 98 innings as a reliever, which means he can go multiple innings at the end of the game. He is kind of their closer because Clay Holmes struggled in September. So Luke Weaver, he might go the 8th and 9th inning a couple days. and you don't want to be down against him because he's been nasty this year, and he's been experienced going multiple innings as a reliever. So a lot of the innings are going to be starters: Canely, Holmes, Weaver, a little bit from Tim Hill. But if you can get into the bullpen outside of those 4 guys, like there are matchups that are good. I know Ian Hamilton's good, but I think he's beatable, and the rest of the bullpen, besides the other guys I mentioned, are also beatable. You got to work the starters. You got to get these starters. The Yankees want these guys to go 6 innings. The Guardians offense, if they're going to have a chance to stay in the series offensively, you got to work the starters. You got to drive the pitch count up. You got to get into the underbelly of that bullpen as soon as possible.
I think it's a solid
matchups. Yeah.
It's a solid bullpen. It's good, not great. There's a lot of solid guys.
The Guardians should at the edge bullpen wise.
Yeah,
if they're healthy enough, or if they've got enough left in the tank.
Luke Weaver is a great story for the Yankees. Like that dude failed all over the place, struggled. Now they've really cut him back. He has thrown 7 different pitches in his career, was a starter, and like we'll have to see. It's like relievers we know are notoriously unreliable. I'm very curious to see if the Yankees have somehow fixed him and found something where there is a world where maybe Cleveland can expose him, and it turns out that it's just another guy who had a good run who.
I don't know. Weaver, the funny thing with the Yankees pitching is almost everyone in their team throws a sinker. They love sinker ballers.
And Cleveland is not good against sinkers.
And they love the sinker, slider, sweeper dudes. Cleveland's got guys against sinkers. Bo Naylor's had good success against sinkers. Jose.
Bo Naylor's the only guy who didn't get on base in the opening round. I don't know.
Yeah. You got a lot. That's the other thing, too, in this round is like you need both Naylors to show up in this round. Josh Naylor, I'll be curious to see what the reception is in game 1. As he gets announced in New York, and then game 2 versus Garrett Cole, there's a history there. So Josh Naylor does not do well against sinkers, but for whatever reason, he's had success against Garrett Cole. So there is that. Everybody else, though, is struggling against sinkers. So hopefully they get Jose and Quan, and Rocchio's hit sinkers, and he had a good first round. So he should be riding high there, too. They love their sinker balls. I don't know what it is about New York.
Well, that must be Matt Blake.
It might be the Matt Blake thing. Yeah, there's familiarity there for sure. It's a different team though since Matt was here. Well, they did see the same guys here in 2022. You've got who's new from 2022. You got Manzardo, Thomas, and Fry are all new.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else I think is back. Rocchio's new.
Rocchio's new.
A lot of pitchers are new.
Yeah,
the Fernando
Naylor was new.
Bo didn't really play in that series. He was on the roster.
He was on the roster, but he was.
And then all the pitchers are new. They haven't seen, and then they've seen Emmanuel Clase, and that's really it. They saw Tanner, last year. That's been it.
Yep. Well, that's it for us. You beat me to what I was going to say there. But
back tomorrow for a recap of game 1 and previewing game 2.
Yeah, hopefully we will. We'll have be an upbeat, positive show. Well, we'll be positive no matter what, as best as we can. Hey, go do an iTunes review. It's been a while. Thank you all for joining us every day. We appreciate you. And go Guardians, go.